All right, we are live. I'm going to see if I'm able to go live some other places too. And yep, we are live over there on Instagram as well. Trying out Instagram for the first time today with my StreamYard. All right, okay. So if you're popping on here, go ahead and put your city and your state or your country in the chats, in the comment. Just say hello. I'd love to say hello to you. So just put where you're watching from. We're streaming on YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Today we're talking about empathy in leadership. So when you pop on here, please go ahead and put your city or your state and which or country that you're watching from. We're going to give it about a minute or two, and then we're going to get started. Today, we're talking about empathy in leadership. Let's see. Empathy in leadership. Okay, let's see. Someone's telling me that my Instagram feed is not coming on, but I see it myself on Instagram, so I'm not quite sure what's happening there. Anyway, talking about empathy in leadership today, and I'm going to give it another minute. But if you are here, if you have connected with us, go ahead and put your name or your city or your state or your country in the comments so we can say hello. And if you're watching this and it's after 3:30 p.m. on Tuesday, after 3:30 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday, you are going to be team replay. Okay, team replay. So I'll give it another minute and then we're going to jump right into empathy in leadership, why understanding and cultivating it is essential. Empathy in leadership. All right, I'm not seeing anyone yet, but I am committing to doing about 20 of these trainings this week. Actually, not this week, this month, for the month of June. I'm challenging myself to come on live and teach about leadership during this month. So it will be up for those who are coming on later. So I'm going to just jump right in and get started. Again, if you're here, you can put your state or your city that you're watching from or your country in the comments. So today we're talking about empathy in leadership, why understanding and cultivating it is essential. My name is Sharon Gill. I'm an executive leadership coach. Work with leaders and their teams to develop, culture, to enhance leadership skills, to improve communication skills. I use different methods, from questionnaires. I use DISC profiles, just you name it. And so today we're talking about empathy in leadership and why it's important. Now, when you hear the word leadership or a leader, especially those of us from the baby boomers generation and maybe a little bit under that, you think about a domineering or a fast charging or a can-do person that makes things happen, right? And that is true. That's our image of a leader, right? They get things done. They're the visionaries. So when you think about an empathetic leader, sometimes it sounds a little bit, how does that work? Because an empath is really someone who's kind of soft, right? They're very sensitive. So I'm described as an empath, right? I literally feel people's emotions. If you're talking to me, I'm really leaned in and I can absorb your emotions. And there's, ways we have to safeguard, and I'll talk about that in a little bit later. But an empathetic leader is a leader who is able to truly understand and lean into the perspective of others, right? Lean into the perspective of your teams. And so it's really a really necessary skill, especially in today's workforce, where we have more Gen X, Gen Zs, we have more, millennials in the workplace, and they don't respond well to that domineering top-down type leadership. So when you think about what's happened in this world over the last several years, when you think about COVID and how it has changed the landscape of work, the reason why people like myself and many of us are working from home, because the landscape changed. And so empathy in leadership is is a skill that's even more in demand, right? Where employees are expecting that. They're actually demanding that. They're demanding that you understand them. And I've heard people say that today's employees are they're very soft and they're entitled. And maybe there may be some truth to that. But here's the thing. We can stay there and we can curse that problem and say, hey, it's the employee's fault, they're too weak. Or we as leaders can adapt and put ourselves in their shoes and gain some perspective. And so, how do you develop empathy in leadership, especially if you're not one that's inclined to be empathetic? Well, one of the things that I recommend is to, when you're having these one-on-one conversations, actually have more of them. And even if you're remote, lean into that conversation some more and truly approach it from the perspective of, I am not here to listen to speak. I'm here to listen, to learn, to understand what are the concerns that are facing me right now. What is the employee's concern that's sitting across from me, whether it's on Zoom or in the work or in my office? What is the concern? And to lean in and to try to listen actively. And one way you can listen actively is to repeat what they're saying. Show that you're actually listening and that you actually care. So I find that leaning in works really well in engendering trust, and it allows the other person, your employees, to feel heard and respected, right? Another thing is to encourage open dialogue. This is the day, again, in today's workforce, the dictatorial, top down, do what I say, we know it doesn't work. So encourage open dialogue and be open to learning. As a leader, be open to learning and to listening to new perspectives. I mean, be open. Because what I've found in my leadership journey is some of the best and greatest ideas always come from the floor, always comes from the team. So be open to learning, encourage open dialogue. There was a practice that I did when my husband and I ran a law practice, and we worked with, we had a collections department where we had collectors working with us, and they would do what we call the pre-negotiations so that we wouldn't have to sue all these people. And one day, my husband and I decided that we were going to sit in the chair of the collectors. And for me, sitting in that chair for that day and listening to people's anger or, protest or, just their frustrations, it really gave me a better sense of what my team was dealing with day after day after day. And so that was literally me sitting in someone's chair. And I really encourage leaders to take some time to sit in your employees' chairs, or at least if you can't do it figuratively, do it get a perspective on it, right? Ask questions, right? Ask questions. How do you do your work? How do you do your job? Ask questions and put yourself in their chair, because that's how you're going to gain that perspective. One other thing too I would encourage leaders to do is to embrace diversity. Sometimes when we have to work with people who are different from us, whether it's in age or race or other differences, it almost forces you to be empathetic, especially if you want to be a strong leader, because you have to lean into conversations that maybe maybe unusual for you, or maybe just again what you're not used to it, right? So I would say diversity, having a diverse team and truly learning to understand your team will broaden your perspective as a leader and allow you to be more of an empathetic leader. Empathetic leaders are going to gain the trust and the loyalty and the respect and the buy-in of their team, because when people feel respected and heard and understood, they're going to add more value to the organization. They're going to be more productive. I mean, that's been my experience. And so, does empathy and leadership goes hand in hand? Yes, especially in the 21st century leadership, it is important to approach your leadership with that feeling of, with that empathy, with that feeling of understanding. I'm leaning in. I understand your perspective. I get you. And being open for sure to other people's perspective. And so I'm going to end it there today. I know it was a little bit short today, but if you're watching as team replay, go ahead and put your questions in the comments, and I will definitely circle back and answer some of those. Again, I'm Sharon Gill. I'm an executive leadership coach. I work with leaders and their teams to develop, great organizational culture, better communication skills, and to enhance leadership skills. So DM me on LinkedIn if you want training for your team or if you want training for yourself as a senior leader. Take care.